Hi, everyone, welcome to Style3D channel. In this video, you will learn how to arrange the UV. So let's get started. First, we need to call the UV editor. Go to the tool. UV editor. Let's take a look at the tools in the UV editor one by one. The first is the texture map. Here we can quickly switch different types of textures, such as normal map, metalness map, roughness maps, etc. If we do not have set the metalness or roughness, the display here will be pure black or white maps. This is the UV wire map. Okay, let's switch back to the texture map. The second tool is the Move Selected UV. This tool can quick move selected UV patterns. We take the UV patterns of this quadrant as an example. Select this patterns. Set its distance to 1. In this way, through the Move Selected UV, can quickly realize the movement of UV patterns between various quadrants. Here you can set specific movement distance. The third is the Automatically Arrange Selected UV. We can Control +A to select all patterns. Click this tool. We can see the UV we have selected have been neatly arranged in the 0 to 1 quadrant. This is the automatic arrangement function. Next, reset UV to 2D arrangement. Click. We can see all the UV patterns have returned to their 2D window position. We can view the 2D window by clicking on the bottom left corner. All UVs are arranged according to the 2D window position. Next, arrange selected UV to the 0 to 1. We use Control +A to select all patterns. Click this button. We can see all UV patterns according to the current arrangement position. Scale to the 0 to 1 quadrant in proportion. This is different from the previous Automatically Arrange Selected UV. It can maintain the current UV arrangement. Next is the Bake Maps. Can directly export the textures in the UV editor. We first arrange the UV patterns. Then click on the Bake Maps. Here you can select the bake type. We choose the texture map and normal map here. We can select below options such as the pixels of the baked texture. Here you can select the area of the UV. Select all. Click OK. Choose a location. Just wait for the baking. Check here the result of the baking. It has been saved as an image in the folder we set. This is a brief introduction to the UV editor. Next, we will arrange the UVs according to common project requirements. For these suit-type clothing, each piece of clothing generally needs to have its UV arranged separately. That is, each piece of clothing such as hood, shirt, sweatshirt, etc., are arranged in the same UV quadrant separately. We click on the button to arrange according to the 2D window position. Because in the 2D window, we have already neatly arranged the patterns of the same piece of clothing. So after using the 2D pattern position, we can easily select the UV of each piece of clothing. First, we press Ctrl+A to select all. Move them out of the first quadrant. Because next, we want to arrange each piece the first quadrant. We need to avoid UV overlap when arranging. First is the hood. Select all UV patterns of the hood. Then click on Auto Arrange Selected UV. So it has been arranged in the 0 to 1 quadrant. We first use the Move tool to move it to another quadrant. Then select the UV patterns of the handbag. Click the Auto Arrange Selected UV. Arrange it in the 0 to 1 quadrant. Then use the Move tool to move it to another quadrant. Then select the UV patterns of the sweatshirt. Repeat the previous operation. Then the shirt and jeans. Consistent with the previous steps. Separately arrange them in one quadrant. Make sure to check each quadrant to see if there are any errors. Then press Ctrl+A to select all. Check for any unselected UV. We select Bake Maps. Here we choose to export texture map. Select the export location. Wait for the texture baking. The texture that was just baked has been exported. We can see that it is saved as one image per 1 by 1 quadrant, and saved as a separate image. In this way, we have completed the effect of arranging UV for each piece of clothing separately. Next, we will talk about the precautions for arranging UV. Let's look at the first case. The same UV pattern cannot span quadrants. The first picture shows the same UV pattern spanning quadrants. The second picture is what the exported UV texture looks like. The texture of the same pattern appears in 2 images. The third picture. Anomalies appear after applying a single texture. This can affect later material editing. The second case. Pay attention to the placement of transparent or hidden UV patterns. The first picture did not notice the hidden pattern. The UV of the hidden pattern overlaps with other pattern. The second picture shows the exported model and the incorrect UV texture. The third picture shows the problems that arise when importing into other software. The texture has discolored. The third case, pay attention to the UV that are isolated outside. The first picture. When arranging the UV, one pattern is isolated outside. The second picture. The exported UV texture becomes 2 images. We modify the texture, and have to edit the 2 textures separately. This results in a waste of time. The fourth case, the UV proportion cannot be too small. The first picture shows that the original texture is clear. The second picture. The UVs are wrongly arranged, occupying too small a proportion. The clarity of the exported texture is very blurry. The fifth case is to keep the arrangement of UV as compact as possible. The first picture shows a large gap between the UV patterns, resulting in blurred texture and details of the model. The second picture. The UV are compactly arranged under the same pixel. The texture and details of the exported model are clearer. So, you understand the importance of UV arrangement, right? Please remember, for the future, to appropriately enlarge the UV patterns with prints, so that the prints can be clear. The sixth case is to avoid overlap between UV. The first picture shows the initial effect of UV. In the second picture, we intentionally overlapped the UV patterns. The third picture shows the exported UV texture with problems. The fourth picture. Problems appear on the model in the later stage. You can see the pattern overlaps. The seventh case, UVs can't be too close to each other. The first picture shows UVs that are too close. The second picture shows the model with hidden black edges. This black edge is due to UV patterns being too close to each other. The last case. The classification rules of multi-quadrant UV. Determined by the project situation. The first scenario. When the clarity is acceptable. Normally, you only need to arrange it in the 0 to 1 quadrant. The second scenario. If you need to adjust the material individually in the later stage, you can distinguish into quadrant lines according to the material. For example, the diagram has one material for the surface and one material for the lining. The third scenario. If you need to select the material on the pattern in the later stage, you can distinguish UV quadrants according to the area. For example, the diagram has one quadrant for the top and one quadrant for the bottom. The following picture demonstrates an improper method. All different materials are mixed together without any regularity. This is not convenient for us to edit the material in the later stage. That's all the content about our UV arrangement. That's it, guys. And I hope some of the tips will help your modeling work. If you like what we do, please liking, commenting, and sharing this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in next video. Goodbye.